Welcome back to another episode of MJ's Progress Not Perfection. Today's guest is Rick. Rick is what we call a real deal alcoholic, somebody who was a 30 plus year drinker, almost an everyday drinker for 30 years. And, I'm going to let him get into the story because it's a good one. Texas boy who just found drinking in biker gangs and going over to Mexico and walking across the border over to Juarez and partying it up. So I'm gonna let him get into that for you. You're gonna notice the first couple of minutes. I don't know what happened with Skype. For some reason, my camera wasn't on. I don't know what happened. So it's just Rick for a couple of minutes. I can't change that. But either way, I'm there. My voice is there. You're gonna see it and hear it. But actually, if you're listening to this, then you're gonna be even more confused by all that because you're not watching it. But it is what it is. Enjoy the episode.
Yeah, we're dealing with Ida right now, where we are in PA. It's crazy right here. Like we're getting like 6 inches of rain, like where we live, and we live like right by the Susquehanna River, so we get flooded out like crazy around here.
Wow.
So yeah, but I'm in the studio all day because I can't do anything at home. My wife's at home; she has MS, so she can't go out in this. So I said, well, I'm gonna go in and just try to be productive today, since not many people are gonna come to meetings today with this rain.
Yeah, that's true.
All right. So, all right, we'll get started because I don't want too much background info because then I'll end up asking you too many questions that I'll want in the interview anyway. All right. So, welcome to the show, Rick. I appreciate you coming on with me. You go by Rick, right?
Yes.
Okay, good. Now, how much clean time do you have?
I'm sitting on we can in 3 more days we could call it 9 months.
Oh, well, congrats.
Thank you.
Is this your first time trying to get clean?
Uh no. No, it's
No.
not. It's probably my fourth time and this is the longest. All the other times were pretty much just slowing the pace down, not just completely, going cold turkey, but it was like, going from because at one point I was close to an 18 pack almost every other day. So I would tone it down to like a 6 every other day or something like that, but never cold turkey like this.
Okay. So you were a drinker.
Oh, heavy drinker.
Okay, so yeah, that was my next question. Was what your drug of choice was? So it was alcohol was your downfall.
Yes.
Okay, all right, so that helps me out here. How long were you drinking for? Like when did you start drinking?
Oof.
The
So
first ever drink that were
first,
not even not like a sip, not like your parents like at a party I had a sip. Like first time you were like I'm gonna get drunk or I'm gonna drink.
yes. I'm from El Paso, Texas, and I had I was probably maybe a junior in high school, and my best friend, he had older cousins, and they would have graduation parties. And the first time I had my drink was during one of those parties. One of the uncles, made me God, what was it? I think a White Russian or something like that. And that's pretty much what I drank all night. And that, the just the flavor of the drink is kind of what you know why I love the alcohol. And then, what comes with the alcohol is the euphoria you know, of the alcohol.
Yeah, and it is quite the sensation when you're a teenager when you're discovering something like alcohol for the first time, especially if you're somebody who's trying to escape anyway and you find something like that, then it's really like, oh, this is what I've been looking for.
Yes.
I found it. This is what I've been missing my whole life. Okay, here it is. Now, going back even before that, were you around alcohol at all growing up? Like your parents drinkers at all?
Yes.
Okay.
Father was a heavy drinker. And he would drink. He was working class, blue collar, and he had, well, I want to say Bush Light or Natty Light, and I tried those, and it tasted, they were awful.
Yeah, I
You
mean
know,
it's not Natty and Bush. I mean, let's be real.
so yeah, I mean, I got my, like you said, a sip here, sip there, and I was like, nah, I'm not doing this beer thing. It's awful.
No, he was a heavy drinker, but he was blue collar, so it was more like go to work, come home, have some drinks, have some beers after work, or was it like a problem too that like spilled off into you eventually?
Um, No, he was a heavy drinker. He'd come home. Did it spill off into me? I mean, I'm a believer. I'm in the camp that alcohol is hereditary.
Hmm.
So what did I drink because I saw him drink and it was fine and I thought it was fine? No,
Okay.
I think it had biology was involved. I don't think the concept of because he did it and I'm gonna do it.
Yeah, it wasn't like he was a bad drunk to where you were like fearful when he would be drinking. You just knew he was drinking, or was it like that?
No, it was like that. It was like that. So, but I'm still in the camp that it's biological. I mean, because I saw him drink, I didn't like the way he was drinking, and during those years, if I'm gonna drink, I'm not gonna get as bad as he did.
Yeah, I got you. Okay. Now, when did like drinking become like almost an everyday thing? So 17, you're a junior. So did you get into drinking every day in high school, or was it later on that you were medicating with alcohol?
It was probably wow my senior year. Um, I would hang out with friends right before graduation, I would be hanging out with all my friends, every weekend almost, and we'd all get together and drink at my friend's house because his parents or his mother, um, was okay with us drinking as long as she kept an eye over us, and
Yeah,
it almost became acceptable as long as a parent was there.
you can do it as long as you're in the house.
Yes.
One of those things. And that does work for a lot of people. I know a lot of people that I wasn't one of them. I wasn't allowed to drink with my parent. You know what I mean? Like I was the oldest, so they didn't know, and it was more strict. So then I was more rebellious. And then by the time they get to my brother, they're like, you know what? You can have friends sleep over, and you can be in the basement. And then they get to like my sister, and they're like, yeah, you can have parties. Because they know it's gonna happen. They
Yes.
they learned from each kid as they went down that, oh, this is going to happen. We might as well just supervise and keep an eye on it, because when we didn't keep an eye on JD and we told him no, he became an alcoholic and an addict. you know I'm gonna do it anyway.
Yeah.
Like I got alcohol poison at 16.
Wow.
I drank a fifth of Bacardi O in 10 minutes
Oof.
when we were in the woods. I haven't drank that since. It's one of those things that I could never drink again. And my dad was smart. He took my 13-year-old brother to the hospital with him to see me. This way, my brother be like, "All right, I don't want to drink for a while."
Yeah.
I think he didn't have his first drink till he was like 16 because of being traumatized, seeing me in there.
Yeah.
I had my first drink at 11 and, started medicating basically at 12, but not like drinking every day, but like escaping with it. Like, oh, I had a bad day. Let's drink, and that was like my escape. Did you ever get anything else, or you just like, what we call a real deal alcoholic?
No, real deal
Real
alcoholic.
deal. Okay, yeah. Because like I identify as an alcoholic because alcohol led me to pills. Like alcohol was a problem for me. I didn't lose control, but alcohol did eventually stop working, and I sought, pills. You know what I mean? I got into them for a decade after, a decade of drinking. So, whenever I meet somebody and they're like, "Oh yeah, I'm an alcoholic," I'm like, "What kind of alcohol?" Because like there's a lot of people like
Yeah.
me, we identify as an alcoholic, but it's because we go to AA and they don't want us to say addict in the AA meetings.
Yes.
Depending on which did you get into the program? We're gonna bounce around, so that's fine. I like a real conversation.
Yeah, no, I got into the program early on, or this last go around. The other times that when I tried to quit and I said I'm going to quit, I would talk about it, with the wife. I would tell her, this time I'm going to do it. I'm going to go to AA. I never did, but then I would just do the really really slow crawl out of drinking, and then it would just ramp right back up after um 2 3 weeks, maybe even a month. I just ramp it right back up.
Can you even see me? Okay. Where I don't
There we
know.
go.
There we go. I don't know what was happening. I just realized I wasn't on screen. That's weird. Okay. Well, the viewers will understand.
Yeah.
I'm not going to start over. That's fine. All right, here we go. That's better. I was like, man, why does it say I'm off? All right. So, I'm sorry. So you got into AA this go
Yes.
around. The other three times when you tried quitting, it was more like white knuckle in it. It was like,
Yeah.
I'm just going to quit and cold turkey. I'm done with it. And then how long you would go, a couple days or a couple months, and then fall out.
Uh, I would go like long stretches of days. I wouldn't even go months or weeks. I would go like um, maybe a week no drinking, and then towards the weekend I'd have a six pack, and then wait another week no drinking, and then a six pack, and then maybe on the third week I just ramp right back up.
Yeah. Yeah, I have to give like what I call real like the alcoholics credit, because we talked about it, somebody else and I recently, that like, I can go into 7-Elevens and convenience stores and not worry that pills are behind the counter. I don't have to see pills everywhere I go that I loved.
Hmm.
So like I don't have that. I am powerless to alcohol once I start it. Once I start drinking, I lose that
Yes.
power and I lose that control. But when I go a stretch, like right now I'm 18 months alcohol free, and when I go a stretch like that, it gets easier and easier to be around it and be okay with it. Like I'm 3 years clean from pills and 18 months sober from alcohol, and I can just like go into a store and see alcohol. I'm like, oh, that would probably taste good, but it's not going to end well for me, and just move on with my day. But if I was pills, that's a powerless feeling, and a lot of people don't understand that. I mean, I think they do understand. I see those things on Facebook all the time, like, well, would you give up alcohol for life for $3 million? Like that kind of shit. Like, you ever see those posts? Like, would you ever stop buying alcohol if someone
Yeah.
gave you $1 million, but you could never
Yeah.
buy alcohol? And everyone's like, no, I could never. It's like, damn, why doesn't someone really give out that money? Because there's a lot of us they actually that could.
Yeah.
People don't realize that it actually, you can have fun without alcohol.
Yeah.
I mean, I quit drinking on February 29th of 2020, and right 2 weeks before COVID, my wife and I both just like woke up on leap day hungover, and we were like, fuck it, we're done. Like, I don't want to drink. She didn't want to drink anymore, and then we missed having meetings. She didn't want to go to AA, and she has her own thing, and I at the time was using cannabis in my recovery for getting off pills, so AA wasn't a big fan of that. So that's how we started our own meeting center, eventually when COVID's still going on. But, in July, we opened a meeting center where we live in Pennsylvania. So we get to do our own kind of meetings, because the meetings are important.
Yeah.
Support groups are important. Having support, like when you're quitting alcohol or drugs, you should have an outlet. You should be going somewhere. I don't care if it's AA, NA, CA, any kind of A, or a smart recovery or Zoom meetings. Talk to other people. They keep you accountable. And that's why having people that are new coming into programs are so important, because I was talking to my sponsee today, and he had to take his mother-in-law to the hospital. She has cancer and stuff. And, he's like, I'm just glad I can show up for people today. And I'm like, yeah, man, like you showing up to me for meetings or texting me, this is helping me. It keeps me accountable too. And it's so important that people need to know, like, today's the first day of recovery month for September. And it's important that people in recovery know that, like, you don't have to do it on your own. We isolated in our drinking and our using. We did that alone. We don't
Yes.
have to do this part alone.
Yeah.
It's not fun, but doing it with others, it's fun. Doing recovery with other people is a fun thing. You can have fun in sobriety.
Yes.
When did so senior year, we're gonna bounce back now. Senior year, now you're starting to drink more and more towards graduation, and now you're graduating high school. Is that like really when you're like full blown, like, oh, I'm drinking every day now? It's the summer. I'm done school.
No, that probably happened. So single parent family. Uh, my brother and sister and I were with my father, and my father worked overnights. He worked overnight at a refinery, and so we didn't have supervision. We almost didn't have any supervision. He'd be at work overnight, um, and during the day he'd be asleep. So we got to see him, you know, maybe 4 hours out of every day.
In
So
the
there was
afternoons, yeah.
yeah. So I was the adult in that house. So you know, I would sneak out. This was before Ring and security cameras, and where you could actually sneak out of the house.
I remember those days.
And so I would sneak out of the house and go drink with buddies. But it that was every other weekend. But it didn't get full blown until I moved out, and that was probably about 19. I moved out of the house. Wanted to go do my own thing, and then him him drinking, and then I'm pretty sure with my teenage angst, throw more fuel in the fire. Wanted to do my own thing, so I got my own apartment. Had a really really good paying job at the time for being as young as I was. So I had spare change.
Yeah.
I was throwing money around, and so I would go pick up my best friend, and we'd go. I looked um, I looked 21 because this was already, I think, yeah, it'd been maybe a couple of years since it went from 18 to 21 at the time. But I looked 21, and I knew certain places. Every town has one of those places where you can go in there and they're not going to card you. So that's where we would go, and there was a local bar, like a biker bar, and we said, hey, let's go see if we could get in there. I mean, if we can't, they're going to tell us no. And we got in there. um so we started drinking, and then we said, hey, let's see if this is a fluke. Let's go in there tomorrow. Went in there the next day, and then we became regulars. So I was 20, and my best friend was like 8 months right behind me. So here we are drinking in a biker bar, and they're not carding us, and that's when it got out of hand.
Yeah, when you can get accepted, you know what I mean, and you're drinking early on. Like, it's a funny thing that people don't realize. Like, when you have that kind of power at like 19, 20 to drink like you're an adult,
Hmm.
you take advantage of it real fast.
Yes.
Um, I was just telling somebody, like, I remember one time, like, I lived right outside of Philly, so we would go to Flyers games all the time. And I remember one time we were leaving the stadium, it was like 5 of 10, and I called the liquor store that I went to all the time. I was 20 years old, and I called the liquor store and I said, "Hey, it's JD. You know the guy that works at Best Buy that always comes in there?" They're like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Hey, we're leaving the Flyers game right now. Can you stay open late for us? We need some beer." He said, "Yeah, man, no problem. We'll see you soon." So, like, I'm underage and I'm calling the liquor store with that much confidence
Yeah.
that, stay open for me. I'm gonna go buy stuff. And
Yeah.
the crazy thing is, like, no wonder why they didn't card me ever, because 2 years later I found out they got busted for selling Percocets out of there the entire time. They were selling pills out of that
Okay.
liquor store. And the only thing that upset me was that I was also a pill addict, and I didn't know that I could have went there for my pills too. I'm seeing multiple people on my drives home. I could have just been one stop
Yeah.
shop.
A two for one. Yeah.
But when you get that kind of confidence going, it's funny what we do. It's like you keep going to the biker bars and you're 19, 20, and
Yeah.
I'm just calling up a liquor store asking them to stay open late for me just to buy some beer. You get that kind of like entitlement,
Yeah.
and alcohol gives you that like entitlement. Let's be
Hmm.
real, like especially when you're that age, you feel on top of the world when you're doing that shit. I can't
Yeah.
even imagine at a biker bar you're around a bunch of like hard ass people down in El Paso, Texas. Like
Yeah.
they're on spring chickens down there. They're
Yeah.
pushing some biker crank out of there too. Like they're like, oh, that 20-year-old drinking's the least of our problems. We
Yeah.
just don't want the cops here because all the crank were rolling out the back.
Uh-huh. And they had live bands there, and at the time, me and my buddy were in a garage band. So we saw it as a that not only were we drinking, we were networking. Um, so, and then with all our friends, were still our age and underage for drinking, we were the cool guys because we're drinking at a biker bar,
Yeah.
So you're right. It's that empowering, hey, look at us. You guys are still outside. You guys get carded because you got baby faces, but me and
Yeah.
my bud are walking right in.
Yeah, we're owning the place. We're
Yeah.
friends with all the bartenders. They like
Yeah.
us.
Yeah.
Yeah, come me when you're 21. You get that kind of like, it's a weird thing, man. And it's almost too much power for a 20-year-old to possess to
Yeah.
be able to do stuff like that, and that's sometimes when you go off the rails really easily because you start feeling like you're controlling everything when really there's no bottom and you're just like falling apart. You just don't even know it yet.
Yeah.
So now you're going to the biker bars all the time. When does it escalate? Because it has to escalate.
Man, it escalated multiple times. There were
You got any
times
stories? You got any stories from me from a biker bar that were an escalation? Because I always like hearing a story here and there.
this is sad, pathetic stories. Yeah, I remember one time, blacking out, and I don't remember blacking out one time. I remember blacking out multiple times. There was this one time where I know somebody was tapping my shoulder, and I was at the urinal, and I don't know how long I was at the urinal. And the guy next to me goes, "Hey, bud, are you all right?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm all right." That's the only thing I remember.
And you were
Just the guy
underage.
asked if I was, yeah,
Yeah.
if I was all right at the urinal, and I guess I'd been standing there an hour. I don't know. Um, yeah, there'd been a couple of times where, my first vehicle was a Oldsmobile, and all metal, and I've I'd go over those concrete dividers in the parking lot, and
Oh
just
yeah.
I, yeah, I try stuff like that. Just blacking out a lot, um, and then next weekend, do it right back again.
So
Like it was not.
so you were like good during the week. You wouldn't party too much during the week, or how often were you going to that bar?
So we would go. So I worked for Pepsi at the time, and that was a job that was paying well. So I only worked Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. So I would, you know, funny thing, I'd go start drinking those days that I'd be working. I'd show up on Thursday, drink, show up on Friday, drink, show up on Saturday, drink, and then maybe Sunday. And then I wouldn't drink Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. But I might hang out with my bud, and we'd go. If for whatever reason my uncles hear this podcast, they're gonna kill me. But my family owned a body shop, and the body shop had a good sized parking lot in front of it, and there was cars that they would be working on that they didn't have to lock up behind the gates, and I just parked my car right there. So if a cop was passing by, he'd see automotive body shop with all these cars parked, and I had a perfect place to drink without anybody knowing. Um, so if I wanted to find a place to drink that I didn't want to go to the biker bar, me and my bud, we just go buy, you know, maybe 10 Mickey quarts, and just drink right there in the parking lot.
When's the first time you were like, all right, this is an issue? Like, what was the like? Was there like an event that like happened? Where you're like, oh, I have a problem with this.
Um, so like with almost every drunk, because I don't want to feel alone and shameful, but when you get to that point, you just piss yourself. Really, you're so fucking drunk that you piss yourself. There's been a couple of times, the blacking out. Earlier when I was younger, I would just black out. Now that I don't know, what was it, old, being older, old age, whatnot, you
Yeah,
know, there'd
bladders.
be a couple of times, yeah, bladder. I'd wake up and I'd be like, oh shit, I just pissed myself. How the fuck did that happen? Um, that's when you realize you start having a problem. You're like, I got to make some life changes. This is total bullshit.
I shouldn't wake up with wet pants.
Yeah, exactly. I would wake up, soaking wet, and I'd be like, God, what am I doing? What am I doing to myself? And that's when I would go sober for like a week or two, and then something like life would happen, and you go back to drinking, saying, fuck this. I mean, it's fucking stress is killing me. Next time I'll make it to the restroom, but I gotta have a drink, because I'm not having it today.
Yeah, yeah, I hear it. So, what made you decide to go to AA then?
So um there was one time where my mother-in-law was staying with us, and my mother-in-law's hardcore traditional Spanish, Mexican Spanish. um I got totally drunk. My wife was working overnight at the hospital. I was working 3 jobs so she could go to school. She gets a job to work at a hospital overnight. um and I'm there with the kids and the mother-in-law, and I got my garage is the man cave, so that's where dad hangs out and chills, and
Your
you
bar
know
was set up in there.
no, I had a kegerator in there.
Even
I had my
better
own
for you.
keg. Yeah, I had my own keg. um
What was
that
your drink by this time? Because I'm sure it wasn't Mickey's, and I'm sure it wasn't Natty and Bush like your dad.
So it was Lone Star, which is out here in Texas. It's the equivalent of
I
Natural
mean,
Light.
but it's the fresh one though, because at least it's made there. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like when I was in Amsterdam, like I smoked a lot. Let's be real. But when I went to dinner, I got Heineken, and I won't drink Heineken, and I won't now, but I wouldn't drink Heineken in the States. I didn't like it. But in Amsterdam, Heineken tasted amazing because it's so fresh. Because
yeah,
that's where they make it. So I could imagine Lone Star, it's the same thing.
yeah.
So,
So yeah, Lone Star is the drink of choice. One thing that kind of led to the point where I was that much closer to making a change was maybe 3 months before I completely gave it up. About 3 months. This was around maybe a little. It might have been right before Thanksgiving or right after Thanksgiving, but not close enough to Christmas. So my daughter has an eating disorder. And at the time she was going through treatment, she just came out for her second time with an eating disorder. And I was drinking, an IPA. I was drinking all night, and right off the bat, I have bad acid reflux. So I'm drinking all night, and then I got so drunk that I threw up on myself, and I threw up on the bed. My wife works overnight. She comes home, and she looks at me, and she's just like, she's just blowing up. She's not having it, and I don't blame her. Um, you
were you
know,
passed out? And like,
I was passed out.
so you
Yeah,
threw up past. You could have died
I could have died.
if you
Yeah,
were on your back.
yeah,
Like I know, somebody that was like in her 50s, and she ran a bar and she passed out. She like fell and like passed out on her back and choked on her own vomit and passed. I think it's coming up on the anniversary in a couple weeks. So you got lucky. You were like on your
yeah,
stomach. It sounds like you're on your side.
yeah. I do tend to sleep a lot on my side. So that's probably the only thing that saved me. But one of the things that is a trigger for a young lady, or specifically my daughter, for eating disorders. She had anorexia, so throwing up to make themselves
Yeah,
skinnier. And
yeah,
there I was, covered in my own, throw up. And had my daughter gone into the room, and saw me with, throw up all over myself, that could have triggered her into relapse.
yeah.
And we'd been struggling with her eating disorder for about um, 2.5 years.
I feel
So
like it starts with girls around like 13, 14, and
yeah,
then if it happens, it's right around the time that like boys start noticing you.
Yeah.
And and usually, because like I know a lot of girls that went through it, and still, like, I talked to somebody who is 10 years sober. She was on my second episode. She's 10 years sober, but she went into treatment for bulimia when she was like 4 or 5 years sober.
Wow.
In her 20s,
Yeah.
and it takes what it takes. But how is your daughter now? Is she doing good with it?
Oh, she's I want to say she's 90%, if we had to put a grade on it. 90%, in recovery. She still has some struggles here and there, but I mean she's on the up and up.
That's good.
Her school is her motivator, so that kind of is what keeps her going forward. And
That's
then
good.
that's about the time that I realized, hey, man, I got to do something. Meanwhile, I'm between that time and the time I finally gave it up, I'm still drinking, but I'm like, okay, look, you can't do what you just did, because all the work she put in, all the all the road trips, and because the facility she went to is not even in Austin, it's in Dallas, so we had to make trips back and forth. That's a 3-hour drive every way, each way. So I told myself, you got to change what you're doing, because all the work I put in, my daughter put in most of the work, but all the work me and my wife did with visiting her on weekends and driving back and forth, you know I can't do this. Can't do this.
Yeah, and because I can't imagine your wife would even be a drinker at this point, considering she's working overnights, and then you're working during the day. So that means she needs to be sober to take the kids places and be the driver during the day. So I
Mhm.
can't imagine she was only drinking only like at social events at this point.
Pretty
Like,
much, yeah.
yeah, okay, yeah. I'm sometimes good at guessing. So, what made you decide? Was it somebody else that you knew that went to AA, or it was just like the first thing that you thought of because that's like,
It, okay, so if I had to, I'm bad with dates, but
that's fine.
it probably happened maybe 2 months before I quit. 2 months before I quit, um, I just told myself, hey, look, the hangovers, it's taking you 2 days to recover from a hangover. By this time, I'm already in my late 40s. I'm 49 right now. I just had my birthday just a couple of months back. Um, I'm 49. It takes me almost two full days just to recover from a hangover. I'm not that functioning alcoholic guy I used to. Um, there's on I was eating ibuprofen like gummy worms, just trying to get rid of the hangover and the headache and all that. I said, you man, too much people have put in too much work to get my daughter going. Your hangovers are getting worse. It's harder to recover. Um, you got to do it. You got to do it right now. And I did. I told my wife, "Hey, I'm calling AA." I found this was in the middle of COVID, so we were having Zoom,
Hmm.
Zoom meeting. Um, and I would show up for like maybe 3 months, 3 months straight, AA meetings every day. I think during those 3 months, let's call it 90 days. Um, I think I missed 4 days total.
Yes, you were going for a 90 and 90 basically,
Yeah.
which is the Zoom. So like I wasn't part of the AA era of Zoom because I was already out of AA by then and having my own thing. How was the Zoom meetings for you?
Um, when I was hearing the stories, because you hear other people's stories, you kind of don't give your own opinion, because that's not what you're there for. You just hear other people's stories. When I heard their stories, I was like, at first, I'm going in, I'm like, shit, I'm gonna be the one guy with the craziest stories, and then I just hear everybody else's. I'm like the middle guy, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm the- it's Goldilocks in there. My bed is just perfect. It's not too hot and it's not too hot or cold.
Yeah.
Um,
But you can laugh at the stories there though.
yeah. Oh yeah.
It's a different kind of laughter when you're laughing together with other people at your misery.
Exactly.
It's a different you're laughing with your stomach and not with your head.
Yes.
That's what I always say. Like you actually feel the laughter finally, like when
Yeah.
you're in those meetings.
And that was the surprising part to me. Like the guys with the really worst stories, they're giggling about, their stories, and I'm like, wow, if he could take this with a grain of salt, I mean, why can't I?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm glad you related in because like some people they go into AA and they're like, that's not me. I'm not that out of control.
Yeah.
I didn't lose my job. I didn't get a DUI. No one asked me to be here. I don't have to be here. And a
Hmm.
lot of people, unfortunately, they relate out. And it's your choice. It's your choice to relate in. It's your choice to look for common denominators between you and whoever's talking at that point, whoever's sharing. It's your choice to, like, you and I, we grew up totally different, obviously. You're all the way down in Texas. I'm in the city in New Jersey and Philly, but I could relate to you the entire time we're talking. I find ways to relate to anybody that I'm talking to. All my episodes, you go through them, I'm relating to everybody I'm talking to, and we all have different backgrounds, different stories, different genetics, different everything. But when you want to relate in, when you truly want to find ways to relate to somebody, you will. You have to be willing to look for those things. And if you're not willing to be in a meeting and all you want to do is just go there to appease somebody else because somebody else wants you in a meeting, in your head, you're going to be relating out the entire time and not learning anything. So, like, to anybody that is thinking about going to AA, go there with an open mind and find ways to relate because
Yeah.
that's where the joy is. When you can relate to somebody else with your misery, you laugh your fucking ass off. It
Hmm.
is a great feeling to know that you did shitty things and so did somebody else, and now we can laugh about it because that's literally all we can do at this point. We can't change what we did. We can't
Yeah.
go back. We can apologize. We can atone. We can do penance. If you want to go back to Catholic stuff, we can do penance. We can do a lot of things, but we have to laugh in order to gain acceptance.
Yeah.
When you can laugh at your own shit because you can't change it, then you can accept it a lot easier. And once you accept something, as you know, you move on. It's lifted off your shoulders. You have control over it. So
Mm.
that's. Did you find a sponsor? How long did it take you to be like, all right, I'm in this?
So, man, here's the weird thing is I never found a sponsor, and I just stopped going. I just stopped going, and it wasn't because I couldn't relate to anybody. It just I stopped going. Um, uh, Never found the sponsor, and it's almost like I'll find the sponsor. I'm gonna go back tomorrow. Um, Tomorrow showed up. Okay, I still need to get a sponsor, and then for sure tomorrow, and then that was just the excuse every day. Um, why? Why have I not gone back to drinking, and why am I still sober? Almost nine months later. Um, faith, faith kind of faith has a lot to do with it, and then also the just that switch in my head flicked where um the wasted time, and I think that's what hits the hardest, all the wasted time, because the oldest son, now he moved out, he's 19. My second son just turned 18 a couple of days ago. um and we had I had I was the favorite parent. So I guess that's where the happy drunk leads in. Out of the two parents, I was the out of the two parents. A lot of the kids came to me for stuff, probably because, especially with money, dad's not going to
Mm-hmm.
say no because he's a little
Yeah.
tankard.
Yeah. How many
um
drinks Dad had? Go ask him. Yeah, we got it.
yeah, hey, can I sleep over? Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, go
um
ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
but faith has a lot to do with it, and just the switch of knowing that I wasted so much time. Um, I think about it. My relationship with both my boys could have been a whole lot better if I was more involved rather than just, you know, yeah, 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 whatever, just go away. I'm drinking. You know, um, I rarely, I've never laid a hand on the kids. While I was drunk, I wasn't the violent drunk. I think I got, you know, when you're drinking and you know my wife told me lots of times, she was scared because I would raise my voice a lot at her. And I'm not denying that I never did that. Um, I never physically put my hands on her.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, because because I didn't want it to get to the point where my dad was abusive when he was drinking, and I said I'm never going to be like my dad, but here I am getting shit faced. I'm never going to be that parent. Um, and I forgot where I was going with this, but yeah, I wish I could have had a better relationship with my kids. So much wasted time, where my daughter loved singing. My oldest daughter loved singing, and she would just sing around the house, and she would take requests. My youngest loved Play-Doh and just fixing things with her hands, and I could have shown her, hey, you know what? Here's the tools in my shed. Whatever you need, a screwdriver, put stuff together. Both my boys loved, playing basketball and hooping. I could have joined a game with them, but I was the hey, there's a basketball goal in the driveway. You got both you. That's why I had two boys. You guys go play.
Yeah. Yep.
I'm gonna sit here in the man cave in the garage and drink.
Yeah. Well, you can't take back what's happened.
Yes,
What's happened's happened.
exactly.
And acceptance is a big part of that. Accepting the fact that you can't change that shit, that's a
Mhm.
big deal. And if you ever do find yourself close to a drink again, just now that COVID, there are meetings again in person. Going to in-person meeting is so much better than doing like an online meeting. I never did an online meeting, but I already know it is. You know what I mean? Because doing the in-person meeting, the coffee's made, you sit down and you're talking, you're actually looking at people. You're talking to people. You're not like hitting a mute button. You're not, distracted because you're at home. It's almost like when the kids are doing homeschool, like last year during COVID, as opposed to going back to school this year. It's a lot different of an environment where you can actually learn and take things from. Um, and I'm not even in AA anymore, like I said, but I got a lot out of it. I still use the steps daily in my life. I went through the steps, within like my first like 2 months of being sober, I was done, and it changed my life. And I stopped believing in religion, when I was like 18. I stopped caring about Catholic Church and going to church and all that shit. But now I am more spiritual,
Mhm.
and the difference between spirituality and religion is people who are religious, they fear God, they fear hell. And people who are spiritual, usually they've been to hell and back.
Yeah,
You've seen hell. You know what I
yeah,
mean? You know what it can be like. You're not afraid of it. You've been there.
yeah.
And to me, that's the difference. And someone said that to me, and it blew my mind. I'm like, yeah, that okay, that makes sense to me.
It
You know.
does.
So if you ever find yourself in that shaky, like I'm having a tough one, for me, hit a meeting. It's amazing. I loved going to meetings. But yeah, when you're feeling like it, man, going to an actual meeting is leaps and bounds. And like I said, I never did the Zoom. I just know the feeling I got from going to a meeting and looking other alcoholics in the eyes and having that kind of confidence of being like, oh, I'm this sober and so are you. We have, some wisdom to help other people now. Because sometimes you don't go to meetings for you, you go to meetings for somebody else. You go to meetings to help somebody that was like you, that just walked in the door. The people that have 40 years sobriety and they still go to meetings every day, they're not going for them. They're going to make sure that they can help somebody else be accountable.
Yeah, on their second day. Yeah.
And it is a really good reminder too when you see somebody walk in drunk or in it and still like withdrawn and still having a tough time early on, and you see them sitting there and they're in their head the entire time, and you can read it on their face that they're lost.
Hmm.
And it's a really good feeling to be able to say, hey, I was like you. you know you're not alone. If you need anything, let me know. Here's my number.
Yeah.
And you get a lot of great bonds out of that. So just a recommendation: if you find a meeting in the area, even if you go once a week, because now you got 9 months, even if you go once a month, it's a totally different environment in person, and you help other people, and that's what's, you give it back. That's part of the 12 steps. The 12th
Yeah.
step is giving it to somebody else now. You
Uh-huh.
know, and it is, you know, now I don't go to AA, but I do group meetings for addiction, you know, twice a day here. And we do other kind of meetings too, like what's today, Wednesday, so tonight's harm reduction night, you know, and you know, Saturdays are trauma. Every night's a different theme at 6:30, but at 9 a.m. and 8 p.m. every day, we call them mental health check-ins, and they're for anybody who needs to talk, whether you're an addict or whether you're dealing with some kind of like you're bipolar, you have a disability, just you want to talk, come on in, you know. And we do morning meditations every day at 10:15. So we do a lot of different things than AA does, but like it's about the group. It's, you
Yeah.
know, it's about that makes a big difference. So, you know, just think about it. I'm not harping on, I'm not saying you have to do it. I'm just saying you would feel even like if you feel good now,
Mhm.
you're gonna be on a totally different kind of pink cloud of happiness and freedom and joy just by actually like sitting in there and not even on a Zoom. That kind
Yeah.
of room, that atmosphere, you feel it. And it's like being in the bar. I swear, it feels like you're being in a bar. The only difference is you're drinking coffee and water and you're not drinking beers. The
Yeah.
people are the same.
Yeah.
The people are the same. The conversations are the same. It's the same
Yeah.
kind of banter and everything. The only difference
Mhm.
is what's in our hand and what we're putting in our bodies.
Yeah.
But they're all the
Right.
same people that you went to the bar with, you know, at the bar stools, and you're sitting around having conversations. You know, technically, this is a meeting, one on one. Two people having a conversation is a meeting according to AA's, you know, bylaw and their rules.
Yeah.
That's how it started. Was, you know, Dr. Bob and Bill sitting down having a conversation. That
Yeah.
was the first meeting. So, you know, it is a big deal. Like, it is a big difference, I should say, in person compared to like online. And that's why I never did the online, because I like talking to people like next to me. You know,
Yeah.
I like doing the whole like whisper kind of thing. Like, you know, like, did you hear that? Like, you know, like, and I like whispering to somebody next to me, like a buddy, you know,
Yeah.
and having like inside jokes with somebody. It's like being in school again, you know,
Yeah.
or I would find the person that like I was friends with, and I was always trying to make them laugh uncontrollably during a meeting, you know, and just to have fun, you know, and
Mhm.
just, you know, if it wasn't a serious meeting or a serious topic, you send a funny meme across the room, and they look at their phone, and you see them start laughing. I say, yeah, I got them, you know. But
Yeah.
it's a fun hour. It's a fun hour. And this was a fun hour. I appreciate talking to you, man. I appreciate you coming on and telling your story, because everyone has different kinds of recovery. Everyone has different kinds of, you know, years of drinking or years of using.
Mhm.
So it's okay that our recovery looks different. It's okay
Yeah.
that you're not going to AA. You know, these are all okay. You know, as long as you have something, you have family, you have faith. Those are all important things, you know. And if you ever start feeling like you're slipping, hit a meeting before you hit a bar. That's
Yeah.
all, you know.
I still carry my blue book. I have the just the smaller version with the 10 or the 12, and then I still carry my blue book around me. Um, Funny note, 9 months sober, and I'm I'm already in my ninth year working for a beer distributor company.
Impressive.
I mean, you know, I'm 9 months sober, 9 years with a beer distributor. You know, I smell broken beer every day, and it just, you know, I overcome it. It's a funny thing.
That's awesome. Yeah, if you can look at it and then be able to, like, I don't want or need that right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a
Yeah.
powerful thing.
I always go back to the wasted time. You know,
Yeah,
you can have one drink, but what are you going to waste now? What are you going to
yeah.
miss?
And is it really going to be one?
Yeah, exactly.
Is it really? You know,
Yeah.
you know, a guy always said to me, like, we have the choice right now. We have the choice not to drink right now. But as soon as I take that one drink, I lost that choice. It doesn't matter. This disease of addiction and alcoholism doesn't care who you are.
Yeah.
It doesn't care how old you are or who you are.
Yeah.
You know, and the mind is a powerful thing that people forget about. Like, just because we can't see our brains doesn't mean it's not a powerful thing.
Hmm.
You know, so you have to remember that we have that choice right now not to do it. So if you can look at it and then be like, I don't need that today, I don't want that today, that's amazing, man. That's
Yeah.
awesome. and especially for your family, and I'm sure your wife's happier, and everything's starting to fall back into place again. That's great, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really appreciate you taking the time. I know I said an hour and we went over that. I told you I'm chatty, so but I appreciate you coming on.
Alrighty, thank
But
you.
yeah, and if you ever need anything else, man, if you ever want to talk or reach out, you have my info. My phone is, I work from my phone. It's always right next to me. If it's right next to me, I'm sleeping, and I'm an insomniac. Like literally, I suffer from severe insomnia. So like, I've been awake for 2 days right now, but
Wow.
you can't tell. Like, I also have chronic pancreatitis from my years of using and drinking. So, which causes I had acute insomnia and now I have severe insomnia because of the pancreatitis is chronic.
Yeah.
Either way, God bless you. And I'm happy
Right.
you hopped on and we talked, and congrats on 9 months, man. That's incredible. That's, one day at a time, dude. One day at a time.
One
Have
day
a
at
good
a
day.
All right,
Have a
thank
good
you.
day, Rick. All
We'll
right.
see
See
you.
you later, bud. See you.